What's up, guys? How are y'all doing?
All right, let's get started with KP. We'll start with Sean right here in the front.
Coach, what do you want to see different in the return game this year?
I think we need definitely on punt return more explosive plays. Moving Jacoby back there, I think that the kid was electrifying last year as a freshman. Just trying to do some things different. Mike has been working a little bit this summer, so I think we'll find somebody. But Jacoby's got that it factor for turning something into a huge play just because he's so quick and fast. So I'm pretty excited about him.
During the spring game, we saw the mental side of kicking at work. How will you challenge your kickers in preparation for week one?
Oh, it'll be harder. It'll be worse. So if you thought we were bad in the spring, we'll be bad this summer too. So then I don't worry about that one bit. Out here it's tough to kick in the spring just because of the wind and everything. And from the I guess 4 years we've been here, all those guys have kind of struggled. And I think you have to make it on kickers. You have to make it hard. You got to really challenge them. We've won games here, some big kicks. So I don't plan on that stopping anytime soon. But last year coming out of spring, fall camp, everybody wanted to know who the kicker. We kicked 2 kickers for a long time, and I think they missed 2 or 3 field goals all year. So I've got 3 guys here, that I think all of them. Stone's gotten really good. Ian, getting him from Arizona State, he's kicked in this conference, and then Upton missed 2 or 3 field goals last year. He's one of the best in the country. So we'll find somebody.
What do you like about Upton? Coach McGuire was talking about the Upton, at least entering in fall camp, had the lead.
Yeah, obviously he went to Alabama, and I talked to those guys. He was behind the best kicker in the country. That's why he transferred. Which a lot of these kids do. And then he kicked at Buffalo. He's really good. So he's he's kicked at this level. And obviously Buffalo's not the smoothest environment. We have wind out here, which I love because I think that's a benefit for us. Just got to learn how to kick in it. But he's going to be pushed. I'm just telling you. Upton mentally, he's got, that's the thing with kicking. Those guys, it's a mental game as much as anything. They've got the same swing they've always had. And I try to tell them, I'm not a swing coach. I'm not a great golfer neither. And I'm not going to mess with your swing, but I'm going to mess with between your ears. And I think that's what separates the really good ones. They can handle the pressure, and they can find a way to block everything else out.
During Micah's recruitment back to Tech, was punt return a big conversation considering how deep the wide receiver room is?
No, I think this with Micah, honestly, just getting him back here and getting him in the swing of things, that's what's most important. That's the thing about it, even when he got here. The playing stuff, kid's an athlete. He's got to learn how to play football and do things. That's what I think Coach was probably focusing on the most. Micah's sky's the limit. It's how he wants to take advantage of it and use it. And as coaches, I'm not going to treat him any different than anybody. I never have. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to play the best players, and he's done a good job. I'm just saying from where he's at right now, he's done a good job this summer.
Coach, I know John Curry had the most 272, I think, snaps on special teams last year. Obviously, he's more than likely moving into a larger role in the linebacker room this season. How do you still balance that? I talked to him earlier. You said he still wants to get to that 272 number.
Yeah, he has no choice. He's going to get to that 272. John Curry is one of our best football players, and I've been telling everybody, he's one of those dudes that he's just different. He's a pro at a young age. What I'm saying, he just does things right, and we've been good on special teams because we've played some of our better players, and he fits that. Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts have done it for 3 years, so John's not going to be no different than them. But that linebacker room, there's a lot. Wes Smith has been a big, and I think Brock Goldwasser is going to be another one. He's a freshman this year. He can really run. So we're gonna have to get everything we can out of those guys. But yeah, he's going to get a lot of snaps because he's a good football player, and you want to play with good players.
Hey, Coach.
Coach McGuire said a lot about Adam Hill and being a true freshman, probably seeing a lot on the special team side. What can you say about Adam Hill and what he does?
Same thing. When I was coaching special teams, I tried to tell him that, Taj is a great example. Taj told me the biggest, talking to him when he went to the Bengals, he said, Coach, I've had to get better on special teams. He always went through our drills. We weren't going to use Taj on special teams. Adam's a guy that we will use, because the running back room's so deep. And, his athletic, people don't realize that kid won the 300 hurdles in the state of Texas in high school. And he's 230-something pounds. So he's definitely got the size and the body to be able to do stuff for us. And on top of that, he loves football. That's one thing with special teams. You got to have guys that love playing football because they're going to get a lot of reps and they're going to do things in the open field that other people don't have to do.
And what do you want to have the special teams unit identify as? What do you envision the special teams room being like?
Well, the first goal I'll talk about, and I'll tell y'all right now, we're going to be the best in the country. That's my goal. I don't say we're going to be the best in the Big 12. We want to be the best special teams in the country, and we will. We'll contend for that.
How different is it for you? You were splitting time with running back room and special teams. How different is it for you now, just getting focused on special teams?
Oh, I'm bored to death, to be honest with you. I ain't going to lie to you. I miss being over with the offensive guys. Just, practice is different. I love those running backs. But, hiring Garrett was easy because he's such a great coach, great person, smart. He is one of the smartest young coaches I've ever been around. So I didn't have a problem. Usually I'd be honest with you, I wasn't just going to give it up to anybody. So, but I'm also one of those guys, when I first got here, I was coaching outside backers and special teams. And I told Joey, the best outside backer coach is CJ Ayu, and he went and got him. So Garrett's going to do the same. And guess what? If he doesn't, I'm right there. They can bring me off the bench, and I can take his job in the midseason if we have to. So, no, he's going to be fine.
You always were the biggest supporter for Taj. Who's the player that you see that might not be getting the thoughts and considerations by the rest of this league?
Well, I've watched Romello Height, and I don't know how he wasn't on some of the preseason. That dude's, coming off the edge the way he does. I've been doing this, like I said, a long time, and I've seen some great ones, and he's pretty good. I just don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but watching him in practice, he's pretty special. And then I'll tell you what, Cole Wisniewski is going to be. You're exactly what you want as a safety. Every play this year in spring ball, if someone missed, he was right there to make the tackle, and he's pretty vocal secondary wise, getting those guys. He's real smart. He's exactly what you want. So I think he's another one that's probably. And I know he was hurt a little bit, his last stop, but he's very athletic. He's big, believe it or not, and I think he's gonna do some stuff for me. He can help, but I think he's another one that I think he was a really good football player.
Anybody else?
Coach, how much have you been in contact with Taj since he's been in the
I
NFL?
talked to him once. As a matter of fact, we just texted today. We try to talk on the phone once a week and didn't texting. Him and Austin, all those guys, Tyree. I try to talk to all our guys, just to give them a different voice. Those Taj, he's doing good. He's been doing a good job on offense and defense. He's getting some 1 reps, 2 reps. So I think like I said, Taj he's ideal for what they want. Just because I think that was the right team for him to go to. Great receivers, quarterback, offensive line. He's going to play.
Joey talked about it earlier about this is one of the deepest teams he's ever been around. That usually spills over into special teams.
100%.
Tell me how much you've noticed that.
At the end of the year, you're like you're finding anybody that's got a heartbeat or a pulse. And I think one thing that we've done a good job with is, some of those young kids, the freshmen, I think we've developed them early enough that once we get in late into the season, if you've seen, we've had to play a lot of those guys. Oliver Miles is one that comes to mind. Then we get to redshirt them. I think the same thing this year. Some of those, Leighton Stone's a guy I was thoroughly impressed with this spring. Didn't know. I watched him. No way in the world I thought he'd be ready for college football, but he did a great job with me in the spring, and I think that's going to translate over, to the depth we already have with just older guys. Those younger guys, it's going to allow us, if they can figure out what they're doing, those 4 games we get to play them. That'll help you, later in the season when you start dealing with injuries and things like that. You can push those guys in there and not have to waste their red shirt. So.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, KP.
Appreciate you guys.
When coaching on defense, how do you approach balancing scheme installation and developing individual player strengths?
It's a great question. I would say that early on in our process of being together as a staff and as a defense with our roster, we try to go maybe a little bit slower with the scheme so that we can work on the fundamentals and techniques that are going to help those guys win, their matchup, their area of responsibility within the scheme of the defense. And I think if we can do that, then we allow our guys to reach their full potential. Sometimes I think as a coach, it's easy to, he who has the pen last wins. You can draw up a scheme that's going to beat the scheme of the offense at the point of attack. Every coach can do that. And there's going to be a stress point with every defense that you have that the offense can take advantage of and vice versa. And so, if you go down the rabbit hole of trying to defend every play and every scheme, you just keep digging a hole that you can't get out of. So I think, being a little bit slower to where our guys can have confidence in what they're doing and how to do it, that's kind of the approach that we have. And then as they gain that confidence, then we can ratchet up the install or ratchet up, situational football calls that we have, third down, red zone, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how we approach things.
And then how would you describe the defensive identity you want Texas Tech to embody under your leadership?
I'd like for us to be an attacking style defense to where, within the techniques that we're playing up front at the second level in our coverage, we're aggressive to those techniques based on the situation of the game. First down, second down, third down, 2 minute into half, into game, red zone, whatever the case may be. So I think if we're an attacking style of defense within the techniques we're playing, that's the style of defense that we would like to play. And then, we like to be a unit that plays as hard as anybody in the country. And there's a lot that goes into that, but that's what we're striving for every day.
Coach, last year the defense created 22 turnovers. Where do you see the potential of your defense in creating turnovers this year?
Great question. Coach McGuire has the take three mentality. We want to try to create 3 takeaways every game. Takeaways sometimes, we're a process-driven team, and I think that if we're focusing on playing really good defense, then the takeaways come with that. If you're focused on, I got to get takeaways, sometimes maybe you're not executing the defense like you need to. I think that historically, in my experience, if you're pretty good against the run, you maybe sometimes don't have – now, I'll say this. We got Jacob Rodriguez. He's great at knocking the ball out. He's probably as good an instinctive tackler that can make tackles and get the ball out of a ball carrier that I've seen personally. So there is some technique to it, and there are guys that have that instinct and that ability, and he's a great example of that. But in general, I think if you're playing good run defense, a lot of times the ball carrier gets tackled before he really starts to make progress down the field. And when that happens, you don't have as many opportunities on a run play to maybe knock the ball out. Sometimes when guys get in the open field in the run game, and maybe they break a longer run, now you have guys in pursuit, guys that they don't see. Maybe there's opportunities for that running back to cut back, and sometimes he cuts back into a guy, the ball gets loose, and then the opportunities to knock the ball out in the run game maybe increase a little bit. So I think there's something to having a good run defense. Sometimes maybe doesn't give you as many opportunities in the run game to take the ball away. And then I think, in the passing game, I think being able to mix up your coverage structures in terms of, zone versus man, creating a little bit of confusion for the quarterback to where maybe he puts the ball in an area that wasn't the best decision for him to do, and you get a chance to take the ball away with guys that have vision on the quarterback and are able to break on the football. And then the pass rush component of that in terms of getting the quarterback off his spot, making him feel pressure to where now maybe that ball sails on him a little bit or is underthrown, whatever the case may be. Those create opportunities to take the ball away in the air. So to answer your question, we're going to be a team that emphasizes taking the ball away, drilling it, teaching the angles, teaching the techniques, all those types of things. And then at the end of the day, we just got to go out there and play the best defense we can, and hopefully the takeaways will come.
Which of the defensive rooms will the fans enjoy the most this year, and why?
Great question. Hopefully all of them. I mean, I guess that's a cop-out answer, but I think that we've got some really good players at each level of the defense. The first level with our front, the second level with linebacker, and the third level with our secondary. And if you can have a playmaker at each level of defense, I believe that gives you a chance and an opportunity to have a good defense. And then depending on what position that playmaker plays can have a big impact on your success as well. We've got playmakers at every level, and in some cases we've got multiple at the same position or multiple at the first, second, or third level. So maybe it's hard to say. I will say this, for me personally, I love watching those guys up front, and so I'm excited to watch them play. We've got some guys off the edge that can create a lot of pressure on the offensive line, in the backfield, in the run game, and in the passing game. And then we've got some guys up front on the interior that can create some problems. So if I was a fan, that would probably be the group that I'd be focused on, because that's usually the group that I'm focused on and practice the most in my role.
Coach, you mentioned having, just piggybacking off that question and your answer, playmakers at each level. Who do you consider to be the playmakers heading into fall camp at each level?
Romello Height, playing our dog position. Twitch Explosion. He is a very athletic guy, and I think he's going to be able to do a lot of things off the edge for us that are going to give him a chance to make a lot of plays. David Bailey, opposite of him, playing our field end position. And both those guys have a little bit of flexibility in where they're going to play, but those would be kind of the spots that they would start, be their primary position. David's the same thing, just athletic, explosive, can bend. He's going to be a matchup problem for the guys that he's going to go against from an athletic standpoint. And success a lot of times up front, in my opinion, if you can have a better athlete on defense than the guy that you're going against, even if he's not as big, that can create some matchup problems for those guys. Those two guys, I think, off the edge can be playmakers for us, no doubt about it, when you watch their tape and see what they're capable of doing. Lee Hunter on the interior at tackle, nose, whatever he's playing in the A gap, the B gap, his ability to really be a plug in the run game up front, to where you got to double team him, and still he's able to create mismatches and get knocked back at the point of attack. And then in his pass rush, that's one of the things that he did so well in the spring, was be able to knock guys back and really collapse the pocket, and that kind of fits into the edge guys that we have. So he's a playmaker for us up front. Skylar Gill Howard at our tackle position is an explosive athlete. He's a smart player. He's got a chance to be a playmaker. So I just named off right now the penciled-in starting four up front. Every one of those guys, in my opinion, has a chance to be a playmaker for us. The second level, I think Jacob Rodriguez is the guy that stands out. Obviously, he's preseason All-American, all these accolades, Big 12 Defensive Preseason Player of the Year. None of the preseason stuff matters to him or to us, but those are well-deserved recognitions, because he is a instinctive football player, gets the ball out, as we referenced earlier, with takeaways. He's got a chance to be a playmaker for us at the second level. I think at the third level of the defense, Bryce Pollock, our corner. Bryce is, to me, a complete player at the cornerback position. He's a pretty big physical player for the position that he's playing. He's aggressive tackler in the run game. If the ball's thrown on the perimeter, knocking the ball down, he can make plays on the ball. He's got great ball skills, taking the ball away. He can cover in zones. He can cover in man. So he's a guy that's going to have a chance to be a playmaker for us. Cole Wisniewski at the free safety position into the boundary. Cole is a big, fast, strong athlete, extremely instinctive. He can take the ball away in the air. Great tackler, great angles to the ball. So those are the guys that stand out to me. And then we've got some other guys that I think have a chance to continue to develop and make plays for us as well. So that's probably the longest answer that I've ever given to a question like that in my career.
I appreciate it, Coach. Another question, the inside linebacker room, as opposed to almost every other position on defense, really is just largely returners from last season. What does that position group mean to the defense, and what are your thoughts on some of the other guys?
Sure. I think the inside linebacker room that's the group that I work with positionally. Great group of guys. They love football. They're hardworking. They're consistent. They're a pleasure to coach. those guys, I think, really work hard to learn their assignments. They're the ones that have a lot going on in the middle of everything. Run game in front of them, passing game going on all around them, and to have guys that are really students of the game and engaged and wanting to learn their assignments, study their opponents, and have great pre-snap anticipations and awarenesses so that they can play really fast. That's what excites me about that group. And I think that in terms of what that means to our defense, when you have guys in the middle at that second level that can read and react quickly and maybe communicate some things pre-snap and post-snap to the guys around them, that just helps everybody play faster. And so I think their ability to communicate and play really fast at that second level is going to help our defense tremendously. And then we've got several guys. Ben Roberts coming back that started here last year. Ben's weighing 241 pounds right now. He's strong. He's athletic. I think he's really done a great job of learning what we're doing and how to do it. He's a very smart football player. So he's had a great offseason. Excited about what he's going to bring to the table this year. You've got John Curry from Coronado, local. He has had a tremendous offseason. I've been really impressed with his ability to cover, to run. He's a 230-pound guy, and he looks like he's just skinny as a rail. Not really, but he's a tall, long guy, and he doesn't even look that big, and he's 230 pounds, and he can run, he can cover, he can change directions, he can stop and start, and he's a very smart football player in terms of understanding fits and responsibilities. So those are just three guys that were healthy this offseason that really stood out. Those two, along with Jacob Rodriguez, obviously, and then we've got several other guys. Bryce Ramirez, who's played a lot. He was limited this offseason in terms of his ability to get out there and take reps, but he's back healthy, and he's going to be entering fall camp with a chance to do some good stuff. Brock Gowas, true freshman that's been here this offseason since January and has done a nice job as well.
Coach, pass rush lane integrity was a recurring topic last season. I guess, what have you guys been working on over the offseason, considering the elusiveness of some of these Big 12 quarterbacks?
We've been working on being great at it. This league has quarterbacks that can make you pay on the scramble. And so, I think that we have spent a good bit of time with our front working on that. And, you got to have two guys that are shoulder edge rushers and two guys that are interior quadrant, off the eye, basically. And so, however you're rushing for, that's how they got to try to finish within their rush lane on the quarterback. You can game some stuff up to where you may have two guys over here that are working some stunts and they exchange lanes, but at the end of the day, it's those four quadrants that you're working on. And I think that with the way our guys can rush inside, and then the way our guys can rush off the edge, whether that's first team guys, second team guys, doesn't matter, or whatever, whoever's in the game. I think we've got the ability to really get some guys off the edge that can really put some pressure on those tackles. And I think our guys up the middle can do a great job, maybe beating the guy right now and getting to the quarterback. But if they don't beat a guy right now, I think they can do a great job of pushing the pocket back a little bit more into the quarterback. And so their ability to do that effectively, if we're able to do that, I think will tie in nicely to the guys that we have coming off the edge. But in this league, it's tough because we do have some quarterbacks that we will face in the regular season that can really run and scramble and extend plays. So that's a big point of emphasis for us and something that we'll have to do a great job, working on to continue to develop this preseason.
Do you feel like your guys are stronger right now in speed rush or run blocking or run stopping right now?
I think they're doing a pretty good job at both, to be honest with you. We're not a finished product at anything that we're doing right now, but I like where we're at from a developmental standpoint against the run game, and I like where we're at right now from a developmental standpoint against our pass rush. So we're going to go to work on getting better at both tomorrow.
Is that right on offenses when they've scored 30 points? And you've been calling defenses, you have never lost a game. Is that right?
I have no idea.
Did you know that? And do you call when your offense is explosive and all that? Do you call defense differently? I mean, kind of take me through that dynamic.
I don't know if that's accurate. I heard somebody about a week ago say that. I haven't bothered to check up on it. So.
But the point is like if you're, depending on what kind of game you're in, you call it differently. If you're.
I mean, yeah, I think at the end of the day, the objective is to win the game, and that's what our unit is going to be all about. And so, stats are for losers. That's a fact. Preseason stuff doesn't matter. If we win a game, our offense scores 50 points and we give up 49, I won't be happy about giving up 49, but I'll be happy about the fact that we were able to find a way to win the game. Conversely, if our offense scores 7 and we can hold them to 6, we'll win the game. So I think that as the game develops as a play caller, at some point, you just try to be smart about how you can win that ball game. And, sometimes if you get a lead, maybe you try to use the clock a little bit in terms of how you're calling the defense. And maybe there's a little bit more conservative way that you can play to where, okay, that you might give up a few yards. You might even give up some points possibly. Maybe a field goal instead of a touchdown, things like that. So, yeah, I think as a play caller, yes, we're trying to win the ball game, and based on how the game is unfolding and how our offense is doing and how we've matched up during the course of the game, you start to factor that in as the game gets into the second half and closer to the end. Sure.
And you mentioned you mentioned quarterbacks, and there's a lot of established quarterbacks in this league. How much time do you spend like the off season studying a lot of those guys that are clearly the starter for their team, and you guys will see a lot of those guys?
Sure. I think we're just like everybody else at this level. In the off season, we're going to focus a lot on what we need to do to improve and be the best that we can be. But at the same time, we're going to do some off season studies on the opponents that are on our schedule and try to make sure that we're before we get into preseason camp, we've already done some homework. Obviously, being in the league, there's some teams that we're playing that I played last year, and guys on our staff have played as well, so there's some familiarity there. But you still go back and you try to study them in the off season, just so that you've got a pretty good idea before you get to game week, and we certainly did that this off season.
Ryan, then we'll finish with Don.
A number of the players we chatted with said it wasn't really, they felt like it was a too deep. They felt like it was 1A and 1B. Have you had a situation like that as a DC, given how much depth you guys have, but also the amount of athletes that you guys have as well?
Great question. We've got multiple positions where there are multiple guys that can play at a high level, in my opinion. We're going to allow our guys to compete each and every day. We're going to coach all of them, whether they're first, second, third, fourth. We're going to coach all of them to be the best that they can be. That's our job as coaches. The thing I think that we try to focus on with our guys is everybody's got a role. At every day you got a role, and that doesn't mean that today the role that you have is going to be the same role tomorrow. But whatever that role is, do the very best that you can do with that role, and own that. And focus on being involved in that process and being happy with that role to be the best that you can be. Don't count your reps, make your reps count. And then as guys develop, their role may change, whether it's a situational deal or just, experience over time. So I say all that to say, yes, this is, I think from a defensive roster standpoint, for me, this is the best roster that I've had a chance to be a part of coaching. We've got guys, we've got depth, and so yeah, we ought to have some spots where we can roll some guys and really, hey, this guy's in there, and then hey, when Jimmy comes out and Joe comes in, you don't notice any difference. They're both playing well and playing at a high level, and that's exciting as a coach, and that'll be important for us as we try to go through this 12-game regular season and play at a high level and sustain that.
Kind of staying with the subject of depth. In strong safety and free safety, you have some redshirt freshmen behind Brendan, B.J. Jordan, and Cole Wisniewski. How do you feel about those redshirt freshmen and their ability if you have to put them in there?
Oliver, Peyton, and Malik are the three guys you're talking about. They've had good off seasons, and made a ton of progress. So I'm encouraged by that. Coach Green, our safeties coach, has done a great job working with those guys and developing them. I think they've gained a lot of understanding of what we're trying to do schematically. I think that they've also increased their football knowledge in terms of all the pre-snap anticipations based on formation splits, all situations, all those kinds of things. So they've done a great job developing. All three of those guys are gonna be really good football players for us. It remains to be seen, how they may be able to impact, this season. But I think they've got a chance to be guys that can come in and really and help us in the role that they end up in, and what their role will be is to be determined. But I'm excited about the camp that they're getting ready to have, and I'm excited about the progress they've made thus far.
And in terms of depth at like the boundary edge spot at the dog position, Joy said you had Romello there, Terrell Tillman, Chetta, Dylan Spencer. How many of those guys would you like to play?
All of them. We'll have the ability in some different packages that we'll run to get multiple guys at that position on the field at the same time. Maybe more passing situations at times potentially, but I do think that Terrell Tillman had a great spring and a great off season. He was a little bit banged up, but is recovering and should be able to participate and have a really good camp here in the next couple days. Chetta Ophelia had a really good offseason and has gained a lot of confidence, I think, in his ability. And on a sidebar there, I think one of the neat things about having some of these guys we've got on our roster right now is they do it the right way. They're professionals and how they approach everything, and that's benefited guys like Chetta and other guys on our team. When you see a Romello Hyde or a David Bailey as an example at those positions that are doing things a certain way in terms of execution, play style, how they prepare their body, how they study, all those types of things. That's tremendous for our guys, and we have guys like that at every position. But I'm encouraged about that position group. Coach CJIU coaches the dog in the end. He's a great teacher and really works those guys and has done a great job with them, and they've done a great job working in off season as well.
Talking to John Curry, he basically said it was a little bit different, the communication that they had to do and they were responsible for a year ago compared to this year. Can you speak to the differences there? He said a lot of people are communicating more so than just the inside linebacker.
I can't speak to the differences from last year to this year. I really didn't spend any time, trying to figure any of that out. But we do put a big emphasis on communication. Especially at the second and third, up front as well, but second and third level, those guys are trying to talk about, okay, there's a formation out there, we're getting lined up, there's some communications that we need to make, and then we try to communicate, hey, if a guy goes in motion, a guy that's not on the line of scrimmage, if that guy goes in motion, what are we going to go to? We try to get them kind of habitual about those types of things, in the box at linebacker with John and those guys, just trying to talk about some of the backfield sets and, the play that might be getting ready to happen based on some different things they kind of go through as they've prepared for that opponent that week. So the best relationships in life, people communicate great, and the best defenses in any sport, people communicate really at a high level. So that's what we're trying to do, certainly.
Quickly, since you said stats are for losers, what's your record against John in cornhole? He said you guys played cornhole this summer.
I think I'm undefeated. What did he say?
He didn't say. I was just wondering.
We played cornhole. I can't remember, but I probably beat him.
Thanks, Coach. Let's go to Leftwich next.
Thank y'all.
What do you think the key is to improving this offense from the 9th ranking in total offense from last year?
Yeah, I think the bar's been set pretty high, but excited for that challenge. I think the improvement that we made up front, I think games are won and lost in the trenches, and I think you see that on both sides of the ball. I think we did a great job of going and acquiring talent on the defensive line as well as the offensive line. So excited to see the improvement from that group up front, and then Barron's just continued growth as a quarterback. I think those two positions work kind of hand in hand, and he gets to play as well as the offensive line. Gives him time to play, and I think going into year 2 as a full-time starter and just the way that he's handled the whole offseason, the preparation, I'm excited to see that work pay off for him.
Which of the offensive rooms is the one that fans will enjoy the most this year, and why?
Hopefully all of them. But no, I think I would say probably the running back room. I feel like that's a really deep room, and all three of those guys kind of have a unique skill set. So we'll see kind of all Cam Dickey, Jacoby Williams, and Quentin Joyner, all kind of in different roles throughout the season.
Break down what they have, what their talents are.
Yes, perfect. So starting with Cam, I think he's a guy. He's a 3-down back. He's powerful. He's strong. He's really hard to tackle. You very rarely get him down. With the first guy, he's great in pass protection. He's a guy that we can trust on on 3rd down when a team's bringing in exotic blitz. He can get out there, and he was a high school quarterback too. So maybe a little wildcat package for him down the line. Jacoby Williams is electric with the ball in his hand. So the more times that we can get the ball in space to him, the better we'll be on offense. I think he's one of the most dynamic guys that we have on our offense. So we'll try to find creative ways to get him the ball in space. And I think too, just as a every down running back, you saw that in the bowl game that he got to play in. He had power right down the A gap, and he has the speed to take a run that should maybe be a 12-yard run for a 50-yard touchdown. So excited about his big play potential. And then I think Quentin Joyner is a really good just all-around back. I think he's got great vision and great feel, catches the ball well out of the backfield, just kind of does everything that you need at that position at a high level.
Coach, staying with the running backs, how do you plan on splitting up the carries, the touches, snaps, and all that?
Yeah, I think going into each game plan, there'll be certain things that are planned out for each guy, and then once we get into games, kind of seeing who's got the hot hand and kind of riding that guy. And I think at some point, one or two of those guys might kind of separate themselves as the every down back, and then we'll use the third to kind of rotate in, just game plan specific. But even if that doesn't happen and all three of them just kind of rotate throughout the season playing the hot hand, I think all those guys are quality running backs, so feel good about our depth there.
What do you like about Coy out of the slot?
Yeah, I think one, he's a savvy football player, which I think is important. I think when you move from the outside receiver, a lot of times is a little bit more isolated out there on an island. It's just kind of you and the DB a lot of the times, and so you get these one-on-one matchups. When you get into the slot, you're dealing with linebackers, all the crossing routes that you'll run over the middle. You're working off of safeties, and so there's a little bit more that goes into what picture you're seeing, how to get open in the slot, and I think his savviness plays well in there. He's a smart football player. He's a guy that's always in the building, always working, at his craft. And I think the toughness piece too. You've got to be in the slot. You got to be okay going over the middle and catching a pass in traffic, and going out and sometimes you're gonna have to block linebackers in the run game. And I think his toughness will play well in the slot.
Getting ready, Caleb and Coy back now that they missed most of the spring and added Micah and Roy there after the spring. How does that change the complexion of the receiver group as you go through the next month of practice?
Yeah, I think you just look at it, from where, we ended up getting pretty depleted in that room at the end of spring practice. And then now where we're at, we just have so much more depth and so much more competition. I think we've got, 7 or 8 guys that are going to battle to kind of get in that 2 deep. Getting Caleb's back, I think is huge just for us having success in practice. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the nation. So anytime that he's out there, I feel pretty good as a coordinator about that group. But getting the depth pieces, adding Micah, adding Roy, and then guys who played all spring. TJ West had a great summer. Price Morgan being back, he had a great spring. So battling in the slot there. Kelby had a great spring. He's kind of been our as guys have kind of gotten hurt and we've needed him to play a bunch of different roles, and so he's kind of just moved around and done what we've asked him to do. And so we've got great depth and great competition in that room, which I'm excited about.
Coach, I know you said some guys are still competing for those 2 spots, but can you give us a breakdown of what the depth chart looks like for the wide receiver position right now?
Yeah, so it'll be, we'll start, CD will be, he'll start at Z out there outside to the right. Reggie, Virgil will start outside to the left. Coy in the slot on day one, when we roll out there. And then behind them, TJ will be competing at Z, TJ West. In the slot, we've got really good depth and competition there with Kelby, Roy, and Price Morgan. They're in the slot kind of competing to get in the rotation and get in the mix in the slot. And then Micah and Leighton Stone, kind of there backing up at the X position. So it's a good room. It's got depth and it's got pieces that are competing, which I'm excited about. We've got guys that can make plays in that room, which is what you need.
And then your two tight ends are pretty pass-catching heavy tight ends. How do you plan on utilizing them? Are you planning on having them both on the field a lot of the snaps, or what's your game plan for that?
Yeah, I think that'll be that'll be determined more, based on the opponent that we're playing and, how the matchups go, whether we'll be in more 11 personnel, more 12 personnel. But I do feel really good about those guys. I think JC is a really do-it-all kind of guy. He's great in the run game, great as an inline tight end, and can catch passes. And I think TC is really dynamic. He's a mismatch at tight end on a lot of linebackers and safeties. You ask our defensive guys who's the hardest guy to cover on our team, and a lot of them will say TC. So excited about that room, and then looking forward to kind of some of these young guys, Jason Llewellyn, Trey Jackson. We just brought in Sean Robinson from Cibolo Steel, kind of seeing their growth over fall camp to kind of build the depth that we need in that room.
Hey, Coach. How do you balance tempo with execution in your offensive philosophy?
That's a great question. I think you want to push the pace as much as you can till the point where the execution starts to fall off. And so we want to be able to play as fast as we can play and as fast as our guys can handle. As soon as we get to the point where we're having a lot of miscommunication, we're messing up easy, simple things and having guys, free runners or quarterbacks are missing easy throws, receivers are MAing too much. I think that's the balance there, like you said. So we'll push the pace as early in camp as much as we can, and just kind of try to figure out and see what our guys can handle.
In the spring, you were talking about going into the 12 personnel quite a bit. So how much flexibility does 12 personnel give you in dictating matchups, being able to run or pass effectively without substituting, and how does that shape the offense and its philosophy?
Yeah, I think that's something that's unique to our skill set and our guys here that I haven't necessarily had before, is the ability to be in 12 personnel and it not be just a heavy run set. I think that's what most teams, when you look at it, you get into 12 personnel, you're getting heavier, you're getting these tight ends on the field, and you're gonna run the ball 75-80% of the time. You become a little bit predictable. But just like we talked about earlier, I feel really good about our tight ends in the pass game, and so we might be in 12 personnel, but we're spread out in a 2x2 set, running any of our vertical concepts. So I think those guys give us the ability to where we're not going to have to be in 12 and then be an 80% run team, right? We can still throw the ball at our 12 personnel and be highly effective. So excited to be able to utilize that a little bit more than I have in the past and kind of give us a little bit more variety on offense with the usage of the different personnels.
You mentioned Leighton and Micah fighting for a spot. What have you seen so far from Leighton through spring ball and his growth and development? Obviously still young, but still improvement as well for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think I said at the end of spring practice, I thought he was one of the most improved players on offense from day one of spring to the spring game. I think he's just a guy that you can really rely on and count on. He's going to show up and he's going to compete every single day. He's got a great competitive drive, and he really takes, all the coaching that Coach Juice does and Coach X in that receiver room. He takes all that stuff and is able to implement it into his game really quickly. So excited kind of about his future. And he's a guy, if you had to put him in the game this year as a true freshman, he's going to know what he's going to do, or he's going to know what he has to do. He's going to know his assignment, and he's going to play really hard, and he's going to compete his butt off. And so, I'm excited about it. You love those kind of guys, and so I think he's got a really bright future.
Coach, last season, Taj's ability to pass block was one of the biggest things talked about. Who do you feel like is standing out the most in your room, and where is everybody at kind of in that regard?
Yeah, I think that's something that we expect from any running back that we put in the game, for those guys to be able to pass protect. A lot of what we do is 6-man pass protection, where those guys have some sort of blitz responsibility. So if, one of the backers or a defensive back, blitzes, they're responsible for picking that up and keeping them off the quarterback. And so I think Garrett does a great job with the running backs, getting them dialed in. I think one of the nice things is we have 3 really talented runners. All those guys are really good at running the football, so we're able to, an individual and throughout practice, you're able to really focus on the things that don't, the things other than running the football at running back. So he gets to spend a lot of time on pass protection, ball security, all the little details that go into that position. And I think you've seen a big jump from all 3 of those guys, from day one of spring to where they're at now in terms of understanding our schemes, the technique, the fundamentals that go along with pass protection. So I feel like all of those guys are very capable in that regard.
Coach, what have you seen from Barron since he's been back, from rehab and off a pitch count? And what do you like about him as a quarterback?
There's a lot to like about Barron. I think throughout the spring, and some of the player-led 7-on-7 stuff that they did, and just being around him, now that he's kind of off the IR and being able to be out there and be with the guys. He's a really great processor. He can see things, he can operate, and he can process and get the ball where it needs to go quickly. He's a great leader. He's one of those guys that just has some juice about him that guys respond really well to. Great kid, great leader. And he's a very talented thrower of the football. He can put the ball where he wants to. Smooth thrower, ball comes out of his hand really naturally. And it was good to see, but especially by the end of the summer, him really being able to push the ball down the field effectively and still be accurate. 50, 55 yards down the field. And so I'm excited about getting him out there and seeing what he looks like this fall camp. But I think he does a lot of things at quarterback really well. And I think too the thing that maybe he gets knocked on a little bit is his athleticism. I think a lot of that last year was him just trying to protect his shoulder and not wanting to be a runner, but I think he's a really athletic kid. He's one of those guys, doesn't matter what you're doing, you're playing golf, you're shooting hoops, he might be our second best punter on our team, he just is a great athlete. And so I think you'll see some of that athleticism a little bit more this year with the way that he plays, now that he is feeling 100% healthy.
Just quickly, Coach, 4th and 1 on the goal line. Any chance that we see Lee Hunter in the backfield?
That's not a bad idea. Yeah, if Coach Wood lets me use him, we always joke around in practice. In practice, I say I'm gonna put together a 4th down package where we get Romello Height, David Bailey, Lee Hunter, and Skylar Gill Howard on offense. So that way we don't have to block him in practice. But yeah, he would be a good one to run behind down there.
Coach, what was it like for you this spring, seeing a quarterback that you helped develop be #1 pick in the draft?
Yeah, that was a really special moment. It was really cool. Just kind of, I didn't really think about it a ton in the lead up, and then you get to that moment, and you see him go #1 overall, and you just kind of think back to, the recruitment process and how all that went, and believing in him and developing him, and the ups and downs that we went through together to get him to that point. So it was really cool. That was a special deal, and I was fortunate. While I was recruiting, he happened to be back home in Houston, so I got to go out to dinner with him and kind of catch up the first time I'd seen him in a while. So that was a really special thing.
I've forgotten if you've addressed this question. Joey has said that you should tell the story about when you were recruiting him and how y'all kind of discovered him. Can you go back over that ground and what he looked like in high school and what it was that you saw that made you think he could be something special?
Yeah, for sure. So he actually, his junior year, I was at Incarnate Word at the time, and so I was the quarterback coach at UIW, and getting kids to camp was a huge part of our evaluation process. Wanting to see him in person, and Coach Morris, Eric Morris, was the head coach at the time. As a head coach, you can't go out and recruit, and so he wanted to see all these quarterbacks on campus with his eyes. And so the other benefit to that is I didn't make very much money, and so the more kids that we got to camp, the better my camp check was. And so I was sending out so many DMs on Twitter to invite to camps that blocked me as spam. But anyways, I was watching Cam's junior highlight video, and I think he threw the ball maybe 50 times that season. But he had one game at the end of the year where his coach kind of let him open it up and be in the spread. And he made a couple throws that game. I was like, man, this kid's got some ability. He's a big kid, 6'2". At that time, he was a little pudgy. He was probably 230 maybe. But ended up connecting with him, getting him to camp that summer, and he had one of the best camp performances that I've ever seen. He was really, really spinning the football, he was throwing comeback comebacks to the field, and they like didn't get over your eye height. I'm looking around like, is anybody else seeing this kid? It was so impressive that like the defensive coaches were coming over and it's like, dude, who's this quarterback out here? And it took a little convincing to get Coach Morris on board. We missed out on a couple other guys who we felt like could move better and were maybe a little bit more athletic. He was a little bit worried about Cam being a pocket passer, which is it's ironic because that's one of his best skill sets now, is his elusiveness and ability to create and extend plays. But we ended up being really sold on when we went down to visit him at his home. His parents are unbelievable, and so the way that he was raised, his background, and then him being a really good basketball player. He's actually the all-time leading scorer at West Columbia High School, and so kind of all those things together with the arm talent, we thought he'd be a great developmental project. We had a kid who was coming back as a All-American who had started 2 seasons, so we kind of figured he would have 2 years to develop, and then by year 3, kind of hopefully take over, and his talent, developed out of being in the wing tee, and ended up he came in during the COVID season, so we didn't play that fall, and so from practice 1, we called a couple play actions, and he handed the ball off to the running back, so he had a long way to go, but then fast forward 3 months later, the development that we thought was going to take 3 years took 3 months, and he ended up being the starting quarterback by the end of that fall. So just a testament to him and his ability to learn and be coachable, and his just kind of natural talent. So yeah, that was a fun time and a cool story. But we were his only scholarship offer, so that's kind of a neat thing.
All right, that'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.